In a howling wind, Mary and I walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau. She noticed my clothes were a bit disheveled and gently reached out to straighten them. This scene made the staff mistakenly think we were there to register a marriage, and they enthusiastically helped us take a number. "Sorry, we are here to file for a divorce," I explained. Upon hearing this, the staff exchanged glances, their expressions somewhat awkward. At the divorce registration window, the clerk asked us the reason for the divorce. Mary remained silent, so I answered for her. Incompatibility, marital breakdown. Actually, this was just a polite excuse. The real reason was that Mary had fallen in love with an intern at the company. That young man not only drove her to and from work every day, took care of her tenderly when she was sick, but also openly gave her 99 champagne roses at a campus competition. She was completely captivated, and I have never forced a relationship that had soured, nor would I accept a lover whose heart had changed. The staff looked at the two slightly worn marriage certificates and sincerely advised us to reconsider. "Don't be so impulsive. Marriage is not a trivial matter. I am busy. Please process this as soon as possible." Mary's cold words sped up the procedure considerably. An hour later, we received the receipt for the divorce cooling-off period. Mary gently pressed her lips together and asked, "George, where are you going later?" "I'll take you." Before I could answer, she quickly walked to the parking lot and drove the car up to me. I instinctively reached out to open the front passenger door, then suddenly realized we were no longer husband and wife. Finally, under her complex gaze, I calmly sat in the back seat. The car slowly merged into traffic. Even sitting in the back seat, I could sense that Mary was in a good mood. The air conditioning inside was set very low, and my rhinitis flared up, causing me to sniffle repeatedly, so I asked her to turn up the temperature a bit. She silently handed me half a pack of tissues. We had known each other for many years, and she definitely knew I didn't have this rhinitis problem before. "George, about the divorce, I'll explain it to your parents." Mary still liked to take charge as always, but she wasn't like this when she was little back then. She was introverted and shy, often bullied by naughty kids in kindergarten, with her clothes and shoes always covered in mud. I was the little tyrant of the kindergarten. Because her mother often gave me candy, I was grateful and would waddle over on my short legs to the broadcast control station and announce to the whole school, "Mary is under my protection, George." From then on, Mary gradually became more confident and later became the school beauty, with many admirers around her. When we were in school, she always used tutoring me in math as an excuse to pull me into studying together, and she was determined that we would get into the same university. In the end, we really became schoolmates. During college, she was like my love shield. No matter how popular I was for 4 whole years, no girl dared to get close to me. On graduation day, Mary took me to the school's astronomy museum. She turned off all the lights inside, and in an instant, the entire hall seemed to transform into a vast universe, with twinkling stars, gentle and dreamy. She held my hand tightly, and I could feel the sweat in her palm. Her voice broke the silence. "George, will you marry me? I swear, I will love you forever." I didn't hesitate at all and happily agreed. But now, faced with Mary's feigned concern, I decisively refused. "Miss Mary, you don't need to worry about my matters. I can handle them myself." My distant and polite tone made Mary unconsciously frown. After a moment of silence, she asked with a hint of sarcasm how I planned to tell my parents about her divorce. I didn't answer. Seeing this, she sneered coldly. "George, don't tell me you're regretting it now." I felt her gaze, looked up, and replied perfunctorily, "Think whatever you want, just focus on driving and don't get distracted." I definitely didn't want to get into a car accident with my ex-wife just after becoming single again. At that moment, the phone connected via Bluetooth in the car rang, and the ringtone was a song liked by young boys. Mary answered the call openly in front of me. A gentle male voice came from the other end, playfully complaining that he had been in class all morning and was starving. Mary glanced at me, saw that I had no reaction, and then smiled as she replied, "Got it. They'll buy your favorite boat kanji for you right now." After the call ended, before she could say anything, I pointed to the intersection ahead and said, "Just drop me off at the intersection up ahead." The car slowly stopped, and as soon as I got out, Mary eagerly drove away. I watched the car disappear around the corner and realized that cold sweat was soaking my back. Because of the injury to my right leg, I could no longer stand and collapsed onto the road. 2 months ago, Mary called saying she had forgotten an important document. I took the document and drove to her company, but on the way, I encountered an accident. An overloaded truck overturned while turning and heavily crushed my car. Although I survived, my right leg was at risk of amputation due to prolonged compression and blood loss. In the hospital, I called Mary countless times, but her phone was always off. Later, I found out that because the intern said he had never seen a pigeon, Mary didn't hesitate to buy plane tickets to Prague and spent a whole week accompanying him. I didn't want to worry my parents, so my close friend Tom stayed with me through that difficult time and accompanied me during the surgery. Thanks to the doctor's efforts, my leg was saved. From then on, I decided not to rely on the person who disappeared when I needed her the most. I returned home and made myself a simple dinner. Just after finishing, my phone received an angry WeChat message from Tom. "George, you and Mary aren't officially divorced yet, and she's already openly celebrating with her lover." Then he sent a photo showing Mary and a young man sweetly dining at the restaurant we always go to on our wedding anniversary. Seeing this made me feel sick, and I rushed to the bathroom to vomit twice before feeling a bit better. Early the next morning, I went to the hospital. The doctor looked at the gastroscopy report, frowned, and said, "George, your gastric ulcer has worsened and you need surgery." I was silent for a moment, then calmly said, "Please help me schedule the operation." In the first 3 years of marriage, to support Mary's career, I took on all the business dinners and drank the alcohol. The irregular lifestyle worsened my ulcer. But Mary knew nothing about this, and now there was no need to let her know. Just as I stepped out of the consultation room, I saw Mary and her new lover David standing at the door. When they saw me, David was so scared he hid behind Mary. Mary frowned and irritably asked, "What are you doing here?" Before I could think of a reply, she coldly said, "George, let's part on good terms. David has a weak heart. Don't scare him." Only then did I realize she misunderstood my purpose. To avoid trouble, I didn't explain and just weakly smiled. "Sorry, you'll leave now," that I had only taken a few steps when someone called me. Turning around, I saw my attending Dr. Lisa, who was also a high school classmate of Mary and me. She walked straight up to me and asked about my recovery with concern. I smiled gratefully. "Thanks to you, I can basically walk normally now." Suddenly, I remembered she had called twice last night, but I missed both calls. Just as I was about to ask what was going on, Mary interrupted. "What rehab? Your leg just has a few scrapes, right?" She only knew I had an accident, but was completely unaware of the extent of my injuries. If she had paid even a little attention to how I walk, she would have noticed how difficult my recovery has been. But she's busy with work and dates, with no time to care about me. "My leg has nothing to do with you. Don't forget we are already divorced," I said calmly. Hearing this, Mary's face darkened. At that moment, David suddenly knelt in front of me, crying and sobbing. "Brother George, I've always wanted to apologize to you. I advised Mary to cherish you, and it's all my fault that things turned out this way. You can hit me or scold me if you want." I sneered lightly. "First, I'm not your brother. Second, this is not a place for acting. No matter how well you perform, I won't buy it." David didn't expect me to stay calm, instead of losing control as he had imagined. His body stiffened, he clutched his chest, and looked at Mary with grievance. Mary tenderly helped him up, wiping his tears while coldly looking at me. "George, there's still 29 days left in the divorce cooling-off period. You know my temper, so don't cause trouble. If things get too ugly, it won't do you any good." After Mary left with David, Lisa ignored the stares of others and sat beside me. "George, are you okay?" I'd always thought I could bear all this alone, but hearing her concern, my eyes welled up. I looked at her wearily. "Can I ask you for a favor?" Before I finished speaking, she nodded in agreement. A few days later, under Lisa's careful care, I successfully underwent surgery. When I was wheeled out of the operating room, I thought I saw a familiar figure, but I was too weak to think clearly and soon fell into a semi-conscious state. After the surgery, I never contacted Mary on my own again. The more I had once depended on her, the more silent I became. Now, 2 weeks later, a drunken Mary brought David back home. They walked in my dressing room, and just as they were about to get intimate, they ran into me, changing clothes. "What a coincidence you're back," I said, taking out my tie and gesturing in front of my chest. "Can one of you help me tie this tie?" The air seemed to freeze for a few seconds. Mary let go of David's hand and habitually came over to help me tie the tie. I smiled and thanked her. Mary then turned to David and said gently, "David, I'm thirsty. Please get me a glass of water." A flicker of displeasure flashed in David's eyes as he glanced at me, then obediently went to the living room to get water. While I was putting on my cufflinks, Mary quietly leaned close to me and said, "George, dressed like this, you're going to see Lisa, right? Looks like she likes to use things I've used." I looked at the suit in the mirror and couldn't help but feel puzzled by Mary's words. I wanted to push her away, but I couldn't. "I asked you, are you going to see Lisa?" She pressed. After I denied her guess, her mood seemed to improve a bit. Hearing David's footsteps, she let go of me. Watching this scene, I couldn't help but laugh. It was like a farce. Brother George is dressed so handsome. Is he going on a date? I didn't expect you to so soon. David stopped halfway through his sentence. Mary gritted her teeth, clearly wanting to say more. Fortunately, the phone rang at that moment. I smiled as I answered and walked toward the front door. Mary watched my departing back, her face darkening. I got into the car and left without looking back, not returning home all night. The next day at noon, I hummed a tune as I returned home. As soon as I entered, I saw Mary sitting on the sofa. She looked like she hadn't slept all night, her clothes wrinkled, and her eyes full of hatred. "George, I know what good deed you've done." Her voice was hoarse, even she seemed surprised. "I've done so many good deeds. Which one are you referring to?" I yawned and responded lazily. Mary's face turned very ugly. "Who exactly did you meet last night?" Her interrogating tone made me uncomfortable, and I answered coldly, "None of your business." I turned to head back to the bedroom, and Mary's cold voice came through. "George, this is my final warning. Don't let your friends harass David. My patience is limited." I immediately understood what she was talking about. Tom and Mary's company have a partnership, and a few days ago, to stand up for me, he scolded the utterly incompetent David in front of everyone at the company. David ran out crying and almost got hit by a car that I sneered. A homewrecker, hated by all, he got what he deserved. Watching Mary's increasingly ugly expression, I continued, "Not just you, my patience is limited too. This house was bought for me before a marriage at 3 in the afternoon. They'll have someone change the locks. You better pack up quickly and don't show up in front of me again." After saying this, I went back to the bedroom and slammed the door shut. When I came out to get some water, Mary had already stormed off in anger, and her leaving made me feel a sense of relief. A few days later, Tom excitedly told me there was a college reunion next Saturday. I didn't want to go at first, but Tom assured me Mary wouldn't attend, so I agreed. Ironically, on the day of the reunion, as soon as I walked into the banquet hall, I saw Mary and David. Back then, Mary and I were the golden couple of the school. We held a grand wedding soon after graduation, attracting much attention. Now, she's arm in arm with David, chatting and laughing with former professors, clearly wanting to announce to everyone that we are no longer husband and wife. David occasionally looks at me provocatively, a smug expression on his face. A few classmates who hadn't been on good terms with me before came over. On the surface, they comforted me, but their words were laced with sarcasm. "George, I really didn't expect Mary to treat you like this. She used to love you so much we were all so envious. Yeah, you gave her your youth, and she didn't even show you any respect." While they were exchanging words, Amy, the campus belle from back then, arrived. She walked straight over to me, affectionately linked her arm with mine, and gently said, "Sorry, George, there was a traffic jam. I'm late." I smiled and replied, "It's okay, I just got here too." Amy's appearance immediately drew everyone's attention. Someone curiously asked, "Senior Amy, are you and George together?" Amy and I exchanged a smile, a little embarrassed, and lowered our heads. Before I could explain that Amy and I had just met, a hand suddenly rested on Amy's shoulder. The moment Amy turned around, a force pushed her, and she nearly fell. The people around gasped in shock and quickly stepped aside. "Mary, what are you doing?" someone shouted. At this moment, Mary's eyes were filled with anger and loss of control, a side of her I had never seen before. She pointed at Amy and shouted loudly, but her eyes were fixed on me. "George is my husband. How dare you hold him in front of me? You wretch." As Mary spoke, she grabbed Amy's collar tightly and raised her hand to slap her. I immediately stood between them, my gaze cold. "Are you crazy, Mary? Who is still your husband? We have no relationship anymore." She was the one who proposed a divorce and told me not to disturb her life, and now she comes to interfere in my private affairs. At that moment, I really wanted to understand what was going on in her mind, how she could be so shameless and cross the line. "George, you actually scold me for someone else?" Mary pointed at herself, her face full of incredulous mockery. "Don't forget, we haven't officially divorced yet. I'll ask you again, what wrong did I do by hitting her?" Damn the divorce, cooling off period. I cursed silently in my heart. I hadn't had time to refute when David interrupted. He tearfully said to Mary, "Sister Mary, there's some things I didn't want to say because I was afraid you'd be upset. But today, seeing George treat you like this because of another woman, I just couldn't hold it in." Then, David exaggerated the story of me having surgery accompanied by Lisa, and even said he heard Lisa claim to be my family member, implying that I had an improper relationship with Lisa during my marriage. Mary hoarsely questioned me, "Is what he said true? Why did you go to the hospital? If you were sick, why didn't you tell me?" Time seemed to stand still, every second unbearably agonizing. Mary had never been this pained before. The air around us felt suffocating. I quietly looked at her, watching her expression gradually shift from anger to fear and heartbreak. "George, speak. I don't believe anyone else. Only you." Her voice was full of pleading. "I want you to tell me yourself why you didn't tell me you were sick." This usually calm woman now had eyes filled with humble begging. Even Tom, who always disliked her and called her a scumbag, couldn't help but turn his head and quietly wipe away tears. But reality doesn't change because of anyone's vulnerability. I felt no guilt at all, slightly curling the corners of my mouth, and said coldly, "David wasn't wrong. I did go to the hospital for surgery." I paused, looking at Mary's gradually pale face, and continued, "Mary, The doctor said my stomach ulcer has worsened, and if it had been any later, it might have developed into stomach cancer. Once, when my stomach was uncomfortable, Mary would frown and carefully take care of me, making nourishing porridge for my stomach and preparing hot water. If I woke up in pain in the middle of the night, she would immediately wake up too. But now, upon hearing the words stomach cancer, her eyes went blank, and she staggered back a few steps. David tried to support her, but she shoved him away and fell to the ground awkwardly. Before David could get up, I walked up to him and punched him hard. He was stunned by the blow, glaring at me with wide eyes in anger. "George, how dare you hit me?" Without hesitation, I slapped him across the face. "You stir up trouble in front of me, repeatedly crossing my bottom line. Isn't it just to provoke me? Now that you've gotten your wish, why are you still playing the victim?" David's intentions were publicly exposed by me. He glared at me viciously, then returned to Mary's side, grabbed the corner of her clothes, covered his face, and started crying. "Sister Mary, it's my fault. I spoke too much. Brother George hitting me is deserved. I'm sorry, boo-hoo." His clumsy acting made many people present unable to hold back their laughter. Everyone spoke up for me. "Mary, what kind of act is your little lover putting on? Who doesn't know George's character? If he really played with feelings, with so many people chasing him back then, why would he be with you? And as for being outstanding, can you compare to Senior Amy? It's ridiculous." "Exactly. Tom already told us it was you who wanted the divorce. And now you're here acting all sentimental? A perfectly good class reunion ruined by you and your mistress. You two should just leave quickly. You're not welcome here." Sure enough, no one spoke up for Mary. During the 4 years of college, I excelled both academically and socially. When classmates mentioned her, they only said, "That's George's wife." David's fingers turned white from nervousness. He was somewhat well known at his school and had never suffered such humiliation before. He trembled with anger. "Sister Mary, He wanted to say more, but was interrupted by Mary. "You go first. My husband and I have something to discuss." David didn't expect Mary not only to refuse to help him, but also to ask him to leave first. Mary bypassed him, walked toward me, tightly grasped my wrist, and said firmly, "Come with me, somewhere private. We need to talk seriously." "Mary, don't be crazy. The lover I once had now makes me feel incredibly ashamed. Those beautiful past moments have all become memories too painful to recall." Mary was surprisingly strong, no matter how much I struggled. She held me tightly, determined to drag me toward the door. "Didn't you hear George say he didn't want to? Amy couldn't stand to see me treated like this." This usually gentle senior suddenly lost her patience and rushed forward to fight Mary. Both of them gave it their all, every move fueled by anger, turning the scene into chaos. As the conflict escalated, the hotel staff had no choice but to call the police. Before long, 2 police officers arrived at the scene, and it took a lot of effort from everyone to separate them. 2 hours later, Amy and I finished giving our statements and left the police station one after the other. Since it was a mutual fight without serious consequences, and both were first-time offenders, the police decided not to impose administrative detention. However, to prevent further escalation, Mary was required to wait half an hour after I left before she could leave. Amy looked at me apologetically and said, "It's all my fault for being too impulsive, George. I'm really sorry." I shook my head and said gratefully, "The one who should apologize is me, Senior. I really appreciate your help." Seeing that I wasn't angry, Amy finally breathed a sigh of relief. As she was leaving, with a hint of nervousness and hope, she cautiously asked if I could still give her a chance to pursue me. After all, I was her first love. She looked at me affectionately and said, "You might think I'm chasing you just to make up for past regrets, but after everything today, I'm even more certain that my feelings for you aren't just a momentary impulse. George, you are stronger and more wonderful than I imagined." Faced with Amy's sincere confession, I thought for a moment and simply replied, "I need some time to calm down and think it over." To be honest, I felt a bit ashamed. Up until now, I had only seen Amy as a good companion to date and spend time with. Amy seemed to understand my thoughts. She smiled slightly and said in perfect sync, "All right, I'll listen to you. Good night, George." After returning home, I opened the fridge and drank a whole glass of ice water in one go. The chilling sensation made me involuntarily curl my lips into a smile. At that moment, my phone screen lit up, showing a new WeChat friend request with only one name, Stella. I racked my brain for a while before vaguely recalling her face. It was really frustrating. I helplessly initiated a video call to Tom. Sure enough, it was him who had pushed my WeChat ID to Stella. George, she's now a top trending actress, no longer the shy little girl from the youth drama club back then. She reached out to me first, so how could I refuse? Tom said with a cheeky grin, "You must have received quite a few benefits from her. Be honest, don't try to get away with it." I said, pretending to be serious, Oh, she just gave me a few concert tickets. If you don't want to deal with her, just secretly delete her after a few days. Tom said nonchalantly. Before I could scold Tom for valuing romance over friendship, Stella sent a message. George, are you free this weekend? I still owe you several meals. I remember that when we were kids, Stella's parents were always careless and often forgot to prepare her lunchbox. For years, I sponsored her lunch for free. Since she is so sincere now, I, a kind-hearted person, should indeed give her a chance to repay the kindness. When I told Tom that I had accepted Stella's invitation to a weekend dinner, he laughed and called me a scumbag, saying Amy had just fought someone for me, and I was already planning to date someone else. I just raised an eyebrow and said nothing. Before confirming my relationship with Mary, I was quite open about my feelings, enjoying making different friends and hoping to bring warmth to those around me. For Mary, I suppressed my true nature for many years, and now I can finally let it all out freely. Divorce, for me, might really be a kind of relief. The day after the fight, I received a call from my parents who were far abroad. My traditionally minded father sternly scolded me. Back then, you insisted on not going abroad with us and wanted to stay by Mary's side. You've been married for 10 years, and now you are getting a divorce. George, do you think you're still a child? That's so irresponsible. Through the transoceanic video call, I lowered my head and obediently listened to my father's reprimand. As I listened, tears involuntarily streamed down my face. Seeing this, my mother quickly signaled my father to stop, then softly said, George, Mary has already explained to us. She knows she was wrong and has even fired that in turn. You see, maybe you too should still. I tightly squeezed my thigh, letting my tears flow more fiercely, and with a sobbing voice, I exaggerated the story of how Mary took David abroad for a trip when I was in a car accident. My parents fell silent after hearing this. I continued, so this isn't just a moment of impulse. Can you really bear to let me continue living with someone like that? Besides, I originally planned to go abroad to be with you after the divorce. My father frowned and cleared his throat. After a long pause, he finally relented. Forget it. Your mother and I have never really been able to control you since you were little. When the time comes, Dad will book your plane ticket. Wow, thanks, Dad. I want to fly first class, I said, pretending to be excited. Time flew by quickly, and before I knew it, it was the day before we were to officially file for divorce at the Civil Affairs Bureau. I was about to text Mary to arrange a time when the doorbell suddenly rang. I opened the door and saw Mary, noticeably thinner, holding a large bouquet of my favorite sunflowers, looking somewhat awkwardly at me. May I come in? She asked softly. Seeing that I didn't stop her, she walked into the room, seeming a bit better in spirit. She noticed the takeout boxes on the table, barely touched, and went to the kitchen on her own. Soon, she brought out a steaming bowl of scallion oil noodles and placed it in front of me. Because I love good food, Mary had even taken cooking classes before, and the noodles she made always suited my taste perfectly. I casually sat on the sofa, rested my head on one hand, and asked curiously, "What are you doing?" Mary was silent for a moment, then forced a somewhat uncertain smile and said softly, "You're so picky and always eating takeout. It must be uncomfortable. George, eat the noodles first, then we can talk." She knew I wouldn't waste food, nor would I let good food go to waste. As I ate the noodles, I watched Mary turn on the TV and sit on the single sofa opposite me, focused on the new drama. Our interaction felt like it had returned to the past, so natural and warm. For a few minutes, I almost felt like nothing had changed until I finished the last sip of the noodle soup. "Tomorrow at 9 in the morning, we're going to the Civil Affairs Bureau," I said calmly. Hearing my words, Mary turned down the TV volume, her voice filled with deep pleading. "George, I don't want a divorce. I know I was wrong. Please forgive me this once. I've realized I still love you deeply." I couldn't help but find it amusing. Looking at her, I said, "There are plenty of people in this world who love me. Mary, don't be so childish and stubborn. Accept reality, it's better for both of us." Of course, I understood she was here to make peace, just as she knew what it meant that I'd started seeing other women. However, reason is one thing, emotion another. Mary spent an entire week alone in the hotel, unable to understand how I could be so heartless. In less than a month, I had already started dating Amy and was acting intimately with other women at the class reunion. "George, did you ever truly love me? Did you marry me just because you were used to having me by your side?" she asked, seeing that I didn't answer. Mary twitched the corner of her mouth and buried her head deeply in her hands. "I really don't understand. It's only been a month. How can you forget all the good I've done for you over 10 years without any consideration? George, how can you be like this? Are our 10 years really worth nothing? Our 10 years are not worthless, and I've never regretted marrying you." I walked over to her, half squatted down, slightly tilted my head up, teasingly brushed aside her tear-soaked, trembling hands, looked in her eyes, and then smiled. "Mary, does that make you feel a little better?" Stop crying, it's just a divorce. Nothing to make a fuss about. Look, you have your own career, loving parents. Oh, and men outside who love you. You're actually doing quite well. My words were like a soft blade, cutting her even deeper. When I said it to this extent, it was to make her agree to the divorce. Mary was completely stunned. George, do you hate me that much? She murmured. Don't flatter yourself. You don't deserve me to hate you yet. I responded coldly. To me, Mary was already a thing of the past. I had neither love nor hate for her. At that moment, her phone rang and the screen displayed the name David. I stood up, intending to give her some privacy, but she tightly grabbed my hand and slid from the sofa to kneel on the floor. She answered the call, and on the other end, David was crying uncontrollably, begging Mary to meet him at school or he would jump from the top of the teaching building. Mary coldly said, I've already returned to my husband. Whether you live or die is your own business. After hanging up the phone, she hugged me tightly from behind. Soon, I felt the back of my shirt soaked with her tears. George, I have loved you since I was a child for a full 20 years. Do you know how heartbroken I was when I heard you almost had stomach cancer? Have you forgotten what you said? I said I was your little brother, and you would protect me. You can't just say you don't want me anymore and then discard me. That I turned to the side, kicked Mary to the ground, then stepped on her chest, pressing lightly. With a half smile, I sentenced her. I'm not the only little brother you have. You didn't cherish me yourself, so don't blame others. The next day, Mary did not show up at the Civil Affairs Bureau as agreed. She got drunk late at night, got into a fight with a group of thugs at a bar, was severely beaten, and sent to the hospital. Her mother personally came to me, begging me to visit her in the ICU, where she had lost the will to live. But I did not go. A week later, at a gathering with Tom, he told me that Mary had become a vegetable. Seeing that I had no reaction, he added with a hint of pride the follow-up about David's suicide attempt. That damn mistress didn't listen to the firefighter's advice and eventually slipped and fell from the rooftop. Fortunately, she was caught by the stair beam and survived. But since then, he can only use a wheelchair. Oh, I replied, my eyes still fixed on the phone screen, seemingly indifferent to these matters. Tom leaned over curiously and glanced a few times. TSK. Stella looks like a quiet girl, but I didn't expect her to be so straightforward. So, did you agree to be your boyfriend? Don't talk nonsense. My ex-wife, who is still lying in the hospital, hasn't been dealt with yet. I'm busy fighting the divorce case now. Where would I have time to date? I responded with a smile. Huh, you're really something, George. Your wife is almost gone, and you're still thinking about dividing the property, Tom teased. Receiving my friend's praise, I put down my phone and gracefully took a sip of the newly released coffee. I looked up at the sky, squinting as I enjoyed the warmth of the sunlight. The weather is really nice today. The sky is clear without a single cloud, and the sun is shining brightly. There are occasional shadows in life, but the sunlight always breaks through the clouds to illuminate the earth. I want to be my own sun, even if I've been hurt before. There will always be a day of healing.